be screwed, feel my own adrenaline. Yeah, I do just what I do, and I hope you let me in, yeah.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to Cypherfics. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the 14th part of, What If Ichigo Enters KUROINU? Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of Takamagara 2012 on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. The following afternoon arrived and Seishin, along with Roxanne and Shamsiel, who remained invisible, entered the king's castle. From there, Seishin approached the king who was sitting on his throne. At the same time Seishin shifted his eyes at Prime Minister Ruben and sensed something bad from him. You sensed it, too? Seishin's inner hollow asked, which the young man nodded. Good. That man is giving off bad vibes. A lot of bad vibes. Do you think he's with KUROINU? Seishin questioned his hollow lookalike. Could be. The hollow answered. But we won't know until he shows his true colors. Until then, be on guard. Got it. Seishin replied before he continued walking up to the throne. The king gazed down with his amber eyes at the red-haired man before watching him kneel. He shifted his eyes to Roxanne who was standing with the crowd, smiling and cheering for him, which brought a smile on his face. It's an honor to meet your acquaintance, Your Majesty. Seishin greeted as he looked up. My name is Seishin Samuel. The honor is mine, young man. I am King Hegel I. The now-named king answered with a calm smile on his face. You may rise, so I can see you entirely. Thank you, sir. He said before he stood back up. I had recently heard of my son and Irboin planning to betray the kingdom. I'm glad that you were there to stop them and save Madame Roxanne. King Hegel continued. Conspiracies like that cannot be public. If it does, rumors will spread to the rebel forces or worse, that mercenary group KUROINU, and gain support. I understand, Your Majesty. Seishin answered. I've been here for a few days and I like this land. I don't want any rebels or so to ruin this. Yes, I forgot that you were a traveling swordsman, King Hegel said, and you recently came here from Salinas, correct? Yes. I am. I had done some work there before making my travels here. Seishin said. Though I did get the demon problem resolved, I wouldn't mind lending a hand to your services, if that's all right with you, Your Majesty. I'm glad to hear that, young man. Hegel smiled at Seishin's reply before rising from his throne. He walked down the steps and approached the red-haired male, offering a handshake. Seishin smiled back as he shook the king's hand. Thank you again for all you've done, Seishin. I also want to thank you for keeping Madame Roxanne in your care. It's my pleasure. Seishin replied. Roxanne is a very sweet woman, I'll always take good care of her. I know you will. Hegel replied, which made Roxanne smile and blush. Seishin turned to Roxanne who smiled and waved at him, which he blushed and chuckled. He then returned his attention to King Hegel as he continued. I do owe you a reward for your actions that night. I would like to assign you to the covert forces. Your Majesty, wouldn't it be better if you were to be discovered by Bias and Harder? Ruben suggested him. I don't suppose you're asking me something as absurd as to promote him to general to subdue the rebel forces, or any of KUROINU's members. Hegel questioned Ruben's suggestion, before returning his attention to Seishin. My apologies if this offended you, Seishin. None taken, Your Majesty. Seishin calmly chuckled at Hegel's response. Is there a problem with my suggestion? Ruben asked the two. Even for the current general, it was impossible. Hegel rebuked. You dare suggest I entrust the task to someone who has experience dealing with bandits and demons? Naturally, I will appoint a skilled general to command the forces. Reuben answered as he turned and physically motioned another person to approach him. He was a tall muscular man with bluish-silver hair and violet eyes. He wore silver-plated armor with one area that shows off his toned abs. The armored male greeted the king with a bow. Personally, I would allow Motair de Platine to take on the position of general. If a graduate of the Knights Academy is able to subdue Gladys, someone who has never been defeated before, it would be good publicity for the Knights Academy. Your Majesty. If you would please allow it, I would happily accept the position of general and capture Gladys. Motair calmly offered. Hegel looked at the seriousness in Motair's eyes, but the wise king saw that there might be something that's missing from him. I am unsure of allowing Reuben with his permission. Hegel pondered. You are a loyal man, and a brave bodyguard, but there is something that you lack, experience out in the fields. Your Majesty, I do have enough experience to handle capturing Gladys. Motair said. Experience is one thing. Being out in the fields is another. Seishin said, which got the attention of Reuben, Motair, Hegel and Isis. If it's all right with you, Your Majesty, I would take on the task of subduing Gladys. Like I said to Urboin, I've gone from village to village every time, doing quests, as well as defeating bandits and demons. I'll gladly handle Gladys, but I want to capture her, not kill her. Seishin's offering left Isis and Hegel surprised, but Reuben and Motair growled. Hegel closed his eyes and pondered for a brief minute. At the same time, he gazed at Seishin's physique and the ambition burning in his eyes. He finally got his decision. Very well, Seishin. I shall appoint you with the task of apprehending Gladys. One of my guards will gladly escort you to where the other generals are at. Hegel answered. Since you were able to stop a conspiracy from happening, I believe you have what it takes to subdue her. I won't let you down, Your Majesty. Seishin replied before bowing before him. Also, if it's all right, I would like a personal audience with you later. There's more for me to discuss with you. Of course, Hegel said, when will you want it to happen? After I subdue Gladys. Seishin answered. Very well. Hegel calmly nodded. I'll be looking forward to what else you have to say. A moment later, Seishin was back outside readying the carriage. At the same time, he pondered on who Gladys might be. He knows that she must be skilled as she is evasive to give the current general a strong time. Gladys, Seishin pondered his thoughts after hearing what Hegel and Reuben said about her. At that moment, his inner hollow appeared in his mindscape once more, pondering on that same thought. Yeah. If I can compare her intellect and elusiveness, she's pretty close to Byakuya Kachiki's. Seishin's inner hollow. It's best if we are careful. We've seen Byakuya's actions firsthand, Gladys might be just as similar as him. Still, we must be on guard. Yeah, I know. Seishin ended his communication with his hollow, seconds before a familiar voice called out to him. Hey, redhead. It was Motair as he approached Seishin with a growling scowl on his face. Motair immediately grabbed Seishin by the collar and tried to intimidate him. However, he remained unfazed. Just who the hell do you think you're trying to prove? I wanted to take on the task of capturing Gladys. If you're trying to one-up me, with your so-called experience, then you just made the biggest mistake. Try to cross me again and I'll make your life a living hell. Seishin, remaining calm and slightly oblivious, remembered what Isis had once told him, when the two first met. Flashback. Betrothed to? Who would that guy be? Seishin wondered, which made Isis sigh in disgust. Judging by that question, you haven't met him or haven't joined the Royal Knights Academy, which I'm glad you didn't, but his name is Motair de Platine. Isis answered. He's loyal to his family, and friendly to a few people like the king and the prime minister, and to various others, preferably those hussies, Droit and Aristella, but arrogant and short-tempered to others. Judging by what you're telling me, he's a D-wad. Seishin bluntly said, which made Isis laugh. When you put it that way, yes. Isis answered before turning to Seishin. Flashback ended. I already know who you are, Motaire de Platine. Seishin rebuked before he firmly gripped Motaire's hand, which the latter felt the pain from his strong grip before he let go. It is my job to apprehend Gladys. I was close to having permission from the king, until you showed up. Motaire exclaimed. And what are your plans on catching her? Stuck her with your cheap smolder and good looks. Good luck with that. Seishin calmly rebuked. If an uptight, short-tempered man like you is trying to bully me around, then you're more naive than I thought. Uptight? I am an elite royal knight and you are just a vulgar commoner. You DMN better learn to respect me. Motaire spoke with venom in his voice. Stop stroking your ego like it's that flimsy PP of yours. Seishin rebuked, which made Motaire growl. A nerve began to pop out of his head. Just as Motaire was going to attack Seishin, a familiar feminine voice called out the redhead's name. Hey, Seishin. Seishin quickly turned to see Isis running out of the king's castle towards him. Just as she was going to say something, she stopped to meet her fiancé eye to eye. Isis. Motaire glanced at her, while Isis looked at him with concern. Motaire. Sorry that you didn't get the position of general. Isis said. TSK. I don't need an apology from a former noble of a dying family. You may be a knight like myself, but behind it all is a weak woman clinging to false hope. You're nothing without me. Motaire rebuked, wounding Isis's pride as well as her feelings. Seishin saw her breaking down from that insult. He growled before approaching Motaire and delivered a swift but strong punch across his left temple, causing him to fall over, head first into the ground. Seishin's actions surprised Isis as her teary eyes watched what had happened. You know, I had just about enough of your bullcrap, Motaire. Seishin said with a scowl as he looked down at Motaire with angry eyes. Isis is your fiancée, and yet you insult her. Seishin. Isis remained shocked at Seishin's response to Motaire, while the latter was getting up from Seishin's punch. A real man treats his woman with respect, not as someone you yell insults with. You are no real man, pretty boy. You have no one to blame but yourself. Seishin continued before he walked over to Isis, who he helped get her up on her feet. Come on, Isis. Let's get you out of here. Seishin helped Isis into the carriage, he then spotted Shamsiel, who smiled and waved. Seishin briefly nodded at her before motioning her to ride with them. Shamsiel silently squealed before turning invisible and joined them. Seishin was last to get on, but not before giving Motaire one last scorned look. He watched as Motaire rubbed the left side of his jaw. The two glared at each other for a brief minute until Seishin got in the carriage, before it drove off. Motaire growled that Seishin insulted his pride and punched him, leaving him with a slightly swollen jaw. The blue-haired man scoffed before he stormed off. Back in the carriage, Seishin was sitting between Roxanne and Isis. He rested her head on his left shoulder while he consoled her after the insult she got. His hands were wrapped around her waist as her head rested under his neck. Are you okay now, Isis? Seishin asked her. Yeah. I am all right now. Isis replied. Sorry you had to see me like this. It's not your fault. He raised his left hand up to Isis's face and wiped the remaining tears around her eyes. It's like you said before, Seishin. Motaire is a D-wad. Isis said as she and Seishin looked at each other for a moment, before the two shared a small laugh. Hey! Don't let that break you down. You're much more than that, Isis. Isis's smile returned when Seishin cheered her up. You're more of a better person than that guy, Isis. Roxanne added. My family and I were noble, but we lived in another country, before defecting to Adelen. Isis began explaining her past to Seishin and Roxanne. As she explained, tears began forming in her eyes. My other siblings, they all died from the plague. My mom, dad, and I were the only ones left. As time passed, my mom came down with an illness that's slowly killing her. My dad became a prefect to help make ends meet for us. He even had doctors come and help treat my mom as best as they could. He was a kind man, much like you, Seishin. I'm sorry to hear that you had a tragic past, Isis. Seishin said as he and Roxanne continued to keep her company. It's all right, it was thanks to him that I became a knight. She continued. As I got older, my dad met with Reuben. It was the Prime Minister that was able to get those doctors to come to my mother's aid. Shortly before he died, he helped me enter the Royal Knights Academy, and in return, I graduated second highest in the class. All was right with me and the family, until things took a dark turn. It was the arranged marriage you first mentioned when we first met, wasn't it? Seishin asked. Yes. Isis replied before continuing to explain her past. My dad and Reuben set up an arranged marriage with me and Motair, just so my mom and I can have the funds to support us. At first, Motair was a good man, but later my times with him became terrible. He always treats me like I'm weak. He always insults my family's legacy, and threatens me that if I don't cooperate, he'll cut off the funds. Isis, you mustn't let what he does harm you. Why not speak with the king? Seishin asked. I'm sure he would gladly help you with what you need. Motair threatened me that if I even talk to the king about what's been going on, he'll cut off the funds and leave me and my mom in the slums. Isis replied. Motair's right. Maybe I am weak. Isis, you're stronger than you think. Seishin said as Isis then looked up at him. Isis. You're not weak. Roxanne said, getting her attention. I was once weak myself, and like you, I was in an arranged marriage with Irboin. My love life was terrible, I will admit. Not a day goes by wishing I would be loved, until the day Seishin saved me. He filled my heart with love once again. You did? Isis turned back to Seishin. Yeah, it was no big deal. Seishin brushed the back of his head, blushing a light pink. I didn't like how Irboin was treating her, so I opened myself up to her, just like what I'm doing now. Like I said before, Isis. You are not weak. You're strong, brave, appealing, smart. Me, be appealing. Isis stammered over her words after Seishin complimented her. She tried to think of something else to say but her blushing fit denied her of her thoughts. All in all, Isis. You are a strong, independent woman. Seishin continued. Don't let such petty insults from anyone else weigh you down. So be strong for me, okay? I will, Seishin. Thank you for the pep talk. Isis replied despite her blush on her face, before a smile was formed. As she turned her sights to the middle window, she shifted her sights to Seishin as he was looking at the moving scenery with the light breeze flowing through his hair. Oh, yeah, I forgot to tell you the good news. Isis added. What is it? Seishin wondered. I've been promoted to accompany you with the rebel forces. She replied. That's excellent news. Seishin answered. Congratulations, Isis. Roxanne added. Thank you, MDM Roxanne. The blonde smiled warmly at her compliments. Did the king give you that promotion? Seishin asked. That's right. Isis cheerfully nodded, before she asked him. So what should I call you now? Seishin. General Seishin. Just call me Seishin. I'm still a little new with this general title, but thanks. Seishin replied while brushing the back of his head, chuckling. I'm glad to hear that you've been promoted. It's pretty comforting to be with a friend during my time here. Let's not forget about me, sweetie. Seishin and Isis turned to Roxanne, who giggled and smiled at him. I will never forget about you, Roxanne. Seishin grinned and chuckled as Roxanne nuzzled her head against his chin, like a cute kitten. Moments later, they arrived at the kingdom's capital. The guards kindly escorted them inside. Along the way, he felt Roxanne's soft melons as she clinged to his left arm like a lovesick puppy with her bone. The young man chuckled while sporting a dark red blush. At the same time, Shamsiel, who was invisible, giggled at the sight, but happy that he's enjoying her company. The four arrived at the two large doors, which those same guards opened for them. Once they were opened, they saw the three generals that Hegel mentioned. He remembered reading about them in the kingdom's library before encountering Shamsiel that day. The first of the three generals was a tall, burly man with red hair that was naturally slicked back, and a matching beard as long as his hand. The man's name was General Felsen. The second of the three was a man almost as tall as Felsen, sporting light pink hair and wearing a blue outfit with a white cape. General Zant was his name. The third one has white hair and matching white eyes. He was General Schlam. Behind Felsen was a man, just as tall as General Zant. He has silver white hair with a thin mustache over his lip. He wore a green-yellow scarf over a green shirt, yellow shorts, knee-high socks and black shoes. According to Isis, his name was Wang Quan. He's an assistant and messenger for the generals. The three generals were shocked to see Seishin, but their shocked looks were replaced with proud smiles as Felsen was first to greet him. Ah, you must be Seishin Samuel. It's an honor to finally meet you. Felsen greeted him. The honor is mine, General Felsen. As well as Generals Zant and Schlam. Seishin smiled before bowing to them. I had read about your history during my few days here, and it really impressed me. Is that man going to be our new general? Wang Quan questioned them, which earned scowled looks from the three elder generals. He's just a boy. He doesn't even know how to create a strategy to stop Gladys and her forces. Hold your tongue, Wang Quan. Felsen rebuked. It's Wang Quan. Wang cried. This man was able to apprehend the culprits who were going to take the king's throne. Zant added. Do not underestimate him by looks alone. Seishin smirked at Wang Quan, getting scolded by Zant and Felsen. At that moment, he sensed once again some bad vibes coming from the assistant. When King Hegel had told us about your heroics that night, we were eager to meet the man who saved him from a hidden coup d'état. Zant added as he shook his hand before seeing Roxanne around the young man's arm. Seishin, may I ask who she might be? Of course. Gentlemen, this is Madame Roxanne. Seishin replied. She's currently under my protection since your boy tried to trick her into cheating. I see. Well, she's very lucky to have you to protect her. Schlam said with a calm smile, praising Seishin for his efforts. Thank you very much, General Schlam. The young man kindly said with a bow. Schlam and the other generals see his mannerism, with the way he bows to Schlam. They all calmly smiled in respect for the swordsman. The four men began discussing plans to subdue Gladys and any rebel group. Seishin even mentioned that KUROINU is still lingering around, even though their leader is dead. Ever since he saw Erboin carrying that medallion that day, Seishin grew more cautious of the area. Their meeting continued until the sun was setting over the horizon. Seishin thanked the generals with a bow before returning to his room, eager to meet them again the next day. At that same moment as Seishin returned to his room and board, Wang Quan arrived at his room, getting ready to wind down for the night. As he was about to head into bed, that same black jellyfish-like creature appeared in his quarters. Wang Quan cautiously approached it, before its eye glowed and projected a mysterious robed figure. The big giveaway was the large snake slithering out from under his cloak. What is your command, Kabuto? Wang asked. At the same time, at a castle far from Bowen, an armored knight approached a young, well-endowed adult woman with dark tan skin, red eyes, and lavender-red hair. She wore a CRP top that shows off her underboob, black panties attached to a flowing cloth wrapped around her peach, and spalders on her cape. As she stared at her armed forces, a lone armored knight approached the young woman before reporting her of the news. "Are you certain about this?" the woman asked. "Yes, Commander." The knight replied. "The general himself told me to inform you with this. And you say he's a swordsman for hire?" The now-named commander questioned his reports. "I heard through rumors that he slayed a powerful demon that killed 12 people in that town." The knight added. I shall take it as a challenge, then." She pondered over the thought. The rumor of that swordsman slaying a powerful demon piqued her interest. "Are you feeling intimidated, Commander Gladys?" That very question snapped the commander out of her thoughts, before she scowled at the knight. "Don't mock me." The commander now named Gladys exclaimed. "To think that I, Gladys, would be intimidated at the thought of a swordsman who slayed a demon. Don't make some petty assumptions." "Apologies, Commander. What shall we do?" the knight asked as Gladys walked away a little before looking up at the night sky. "I shall pay him a visit," she answered as she balled up her right hand. Back in his room, Seishin was already in bed, naked. Soft moans and sighs of relief escaped his lips as he felt the soft mounds of Shamsiel and Roxanne around his irked phallus and their warm tongues eating the tip like a lollipop while they're moving their massive mounds up and down on his tower. Seishin, succumbing to their combined paizuri, felt like he's melting in their melons, like butter in a hot skillet. Roxanne and Shamsiel giggled at their lover, feeling like he's at the mercy of their pleasure. In a short minute, Seishin surprised the two with his seed spraying on their melons and faces. The two ladies giggled before eating each other off. Seishin watched as Shamsiel gazed back with lust in her eyes at her mstr as she licked off his sticky seed off Roxanne before they shared a passionate embrace. "You have no idea how hot you two are right now," Seishin said, which got both the ladies' attention. Shamsiel and Roxanne giggled at his compliment. A moment later, Shamsiel was on top of Seishin rubbing his tip against her before she guided his irked tower inside her. Her back arched, her melons jiggled and her smile never left. "Mstr, your PP is amazing," Shamsiel said before letting out her lewd moans. Seishin smiled and chuckled as he watched his succubus ride him like a horse. At the same time she took his hands and made him rub her melons. Seconds later, he saw Roxanne standing over his face, showing off her pink lips to him. Seishin saw the former prefect's wife as she wore a lustful smile on her face. The two gazed at each other for a moment, before Seishin knew what she wanted. With a chuckle and a nod from the Shinigami, Roxanne opened her abaya, showing off her CLT and her pink entrance before she sat on Seishin's face. Seconds later, she began moaning from the feel of Seishin's warm tongue licking every part of it. "My tips feel great. Mstr, squeeze them harder," Shamsiel said, which Seishin did by sinking his fingers into her mounds, earning her moans that grew an octave higher. "Ah, so good," Roxanne said before her peach started gyrating as Seishin continued to lick against her lower entrance. Shamsiel giggled at Roxanne's lewdness before she leaned in and kissed her again with such passion. The pleasure Shamsiel was receiving was intense, just like the other times before. The feel of Seishin's hands on her melons, combined with her riding his strong PP, made the succubus break her embrace with Roxanne, only to louder. Her eyes half shut, a line of drool ran down the corner of her smile, and her body jiggled as she rode through the intensity that Seishin gave her. It was only a matter of time until Shamsiel reached her CLMX. "Seishin. I'm leaking, leaking, leaking. Leak with me," Shamsiel cried before she and Seishin moaned. The young man flooded her womb with his hot milk, before watching Shamsiel in a state of euphoric bliss. "Mstr. Shamsiel said blissfully with her smile on her face. Seishin chuckled before laying her down next to him and pulling his tower out, leaving Roxanne amazed that he still has energy left in him. My turn now, my love. Roxanne said as she licked her lips before climbing on top of Seishin and sliding his tower inside her moist entrance. The two gasped for a moment before she started riding him. Soft, lewd moans escaped Roxanne's lips as she rode through the waves of pleasure while her eyes remained locked on Seishin while a smile graced her appealing face. As she bounced on his lap, her lactating melons began to leak milk even more, dripping down on his torso with each bounce. Roxanne, you're appealing. Seishin said before Roxanne kissed his lips. The two were intertwined in a passionate lip lock, earning moans between the two. It lasted a minute before Roxanne pulled her lips back and replaced it with her left BRST, motioning him to drink her milk once more. As Seishin drank Roxanne's milk, he watched as she took her other BRST into her mouth before she started drinking. Before long, she began to bounce faster on his lap. Shamsiel, who still dazed from her moment with Seishin, watched him with Roxanne. A giggle was made as she watched him enjoy himself. Seishin. More. Roxanne said after she freed her BRST from her mouth before Seishin began eating on both of them. He then held her peach before he began slamming his strong against her. Wow. You're really enjoying this. Seishin said before he sat up, have his red eyes meet her brown orbs. So, good. Roxanne cried in between her moans before she leaned in and kissed his lips with such intensity. The tightness of Roxanne's inner walls, his tower's sensitivity after he did it with Shamsiel and the feel of Roxanne's soft body pressed against his chst was just enough to push Seishin to his CLMX. Roxanne. I can't hold it in much longer. Seishin said in between his moans. Roxanne replied by wrapping her arms and legs around him and pulling him up so he was on top. With that, Seishin drives his tower to her CRVX as strong and fast as he could. A minute later and the two cried out in their CLMX. Roxanne was in complete bliss as she felt Seishin's hot milk flood her womb. Seishin weakly pulled his cream-covered PP out of her before he fell back, headfirst into his pillow. Shamsiel and Roxanne then wrapped their arms around his CHST, and their faces nuzzled his chin. At the same time as Seishin was asleep from his making out with Roxanne and Shamsiel, Seishin's inner hollow was looking back at the time the mysterious presence possessed Seishin aided him with defeating Volt and Kabuto. As he saw the new form he was in, he couldn't help but be fascinated at the new power he possessed. It wasn't long until that same presence appeared next to him. It took on the form of Seishin as a child. The only thing that is different is that he has the same mask Seishin wore when he defeated Volt. MSTR. I sense him slowly getting stronger, the presence spoke with an echoed voice, his eyes, hidden in his mask, gazing quietly at the projected screen, with a calm composure. I believe you told him what happened that night. Yes, I did. The hollow answered, before turning his attention to the masked anomaly. Who are you, really? And why did you help us that night? The same reason you're here. To aid him on his quest. The anomaly turned his sight to Seishin's hollow, and to the hollow's surprise, he saw the anomaly's eyes. It was heterochromia, its left eye was black with a gold pupil, and the right eye was white with a black pupil. Hollow immediately pushed that thought into the back of his mind. Have you sensed something evil right now? Hollow asked. No, which I'm partially relieved about, but I foresee something that will happen. The anomaly said as Seishin's hollow's attention was piqued, a powerful darkness is rising from the dead soon. He'll be even stronger than he was before, and if the three of us don't work together, everything will fall to ruin, by his hand. Volt. Hollow's right fist tightened as black sparks of electricity swirled around it. Will you be able to teach Seishin that power? I will, but not right now. The anomaly answered with a brief nod. I'm currently not back to full power. When I took over Seishin's body, I exhausted more than half of my power, which made me what you see right now. Give me a few days, about 3 days from now. I'll be ready to speak to the MSTR. Now, I must rest. Seishin's hollow watched as the anomaly closed its eyes before its body turned foggy and disintegrated into thin air. The hollowified persona pondered over the anomaly's final words before retreating into the dark corners of Seishin's inner world. The question that came to Hollow's mind was, how will Seishin react? Little did the hollow and the anomaly know, Seishin, who was close by, heard everything. He knew he had a feeling KUROINU might rise again, and knowing Kabuto, he might have a plan to revive Volt. Seishin silently growled before he left his inner world. The next morning, Seishin was in his quarters, reading the reports of what had happened recently. Shamsiel, on the other hand, was feeding him his breakfast while floating in the air. Roxanne had told him that she went shopping in the food market, getting ingredients for a special dish she learned since she was a child. Shamsiel giggled as she scooped up some of his soup in a spoon before raising it to his lips. Say, ah. Shamsiel cooed as she watched her MSTR eat his soup. Thanks, Shamsiel. Seishin smiled before Shamsiel leaned in and kissed his soft lips. Ah. Anything for you, handsome. Shamsiel replied before giggling once more. As she was about to feed him again, the two heard knocks from the door. The two nodded before Shamsiel floated away and turned invisible. Seconds after, Wang Quan stepped in. You summon me? Wang Quan asked. What a horrible battlefield. Seishin said. They were out of explosives, but it's almost like they're doing their training wrong. Do you think it was an inside job, Wang? They are still out of explosives, though. Wang answered. Gladys. Seishin closed his eyes and pondered over the assassin and why she hadn't attempted to invade. Why hasn't she invaded Oto, yet? Is it a matter of logistics? Or is it something else? Greetings, Seishin. Seishin immediately turned to the door and saw Sir Felsen, Sir Schlam, and Sir Zant. Sir Felsen, Schlam and Zant. Seishin smiled at the three generals before he stood up to shake their hands. I'm glad you guys stopped by, but what are you all doing here? We were wondering what you have been doing during your travels. Zant answered. Well, it's been one heck of a journey. Seishin chuckled while brushing the back of his head. I've been fighting lesser bandits that were taking over villages, killing monsters, and just recently, I saved 2 female elves from a group of bandits who were supporting KUROINU. Sadly, I was unable to save the husband of one of the elves. A group of bandits who support KUROINU? Felsen questioned him. KUROINU's been defeated by a masked man. At least that's what I had heard in rumors. Yeah, it seems the rumors might be true. Schlam added. All that matters is that Salinas is safe from that infamous mercenary group. Yeah. Seishin calmly nodded. He remembered what his inner hollow said about trusting others with his secret, and he believes that they are more than trustworthy to tell them. Sir Schlam, Sir Zant and Sir Felsen, though I am new to the position of general, I want to say thanks for making me feel welcome. I also want to te. Just as Seishin was about to tell them, a soldier ran in his room. His entrance immediately caught everyone's attention as they all turned to the lone soldier. We have trouble. The enemy has breached our line. The soldier exclaimed while being out of breath. How many are there? Felsen asked. Just one, General. The soldier replied. Humph. Very well. Felsen muttered before turning to Seishin. Seishin, we would like to hear more of your adventures later on. Of course. I'll see you all later. Seishin said as he watched the generals and the lone soldier run off to find the soldier. Moments later, Roxanne came in with her groceries and Shamsiel reappeared beside him. Something wrong, Seishin? Roxanne asked them. The enemy is invading, I hear. Shamsiel giggled before she got closer to Seishin that her left BRST was touching his right shoulder. The demon is about to invade, too. She already has. Seishin said as he sensed a presence and a hint of perfume. Shamsiel immediately turned invisible once more once he eyed the curtain by the fireplace. You can come out, now. It's just the three of us. There was a small ruffling from the curtain until the invader came out. It was the same dark-skinned woman with lavender-red hair. She approached the young man with her sword drawn. Roxanne immediately wrapped her arms around him in a protective manner. You must be Gladys, I presume? Seishin rhetorically asked. And you're the swordsman that was hired? Gladys said. Allow me to introduce myself. My name's Seishin Samuel. Seishin said before he waved to Roxanne, motioning her that everything's okay. He then offered her some food for her. Would you like something to eat? You traveled all this way just to see an unarmed man. Just by looking at you, you do seem to be skillful, but I rather see it head-on instead of hearing rumors. Gladys raised her eyebrow while looking at the red-haired young man. Her grip on her sword hadn't lessened as she continued to point it at Seishin. Why do you think I came here? Let me guess. To discuss how to break up the rebel forces? Seishin assumed. You think I am here to discuss strategies? Gladys let out a laugh while Seishin remained unfazed. You're quite carefree than you appear to be. You do realize your life's in danger. Maybe, but at least I got a woman as gorgeous as you to laugh. Seishin said while sharing a happy chuckle. Besides, brooding so much makes you a little less of a fun person. Heh. What kind of person are you? Gladys wondered. I'm just a guy who likes to take on challenges. Seishin smiled warmly before eating a few grapes from the bunch, but not on an empty stomach. Gladys laughs for a moment, before she turns while returning her sword back in its scabbard. As she was about to walk off, she walked back and took one of the rolls Seishin offered earlier. Seishin Samuel, was it? Gladys began to walk off. You're quite an interesting person. I hope the next time we meet will be in battle. Who knows, it might just happen. Seishin replied, which made Gladys stop to look at him. The two exchanged smirks before Gladys swiftly left the place. Roxanne and Shamsiel, who appeared beside him, both hugged him tightly. I thought she was going to kill you. Roxanne cried before letting out a sigh of relief. I'm glad you're all right though. I doubt she would have done it to begin with. Besides, I'm unarmed, like I said. Seishin grinned before kissing Roxanne and Shamsiel on the cheek. Besides, I can tell she's an honorable person. She'd rather fight me one-on-one instead of this sneak attack. Very observant, Seishin. Shamsiel cheered. I agree. Roxanne added. Gladys is quite an interesting woman. I would like to get to know her more. All in due time, my dear wife. Seishin smiled as he nuzzled his nose with hers before the two shared an embrace. Time I go and visit her campsite in Bunderwald tomorrow. Bunderwald? How do you know the base camp is there? Roxanne wondered. On the night after meeting Sir Felsen and the others for the first time, I had my inner hollow do a little reconnaissance. Seishin answered. It didn't take him long to find it. Very nice, Mstr, Shamsiel said, but do you need a disguise? I already got the disguise in mind. Seishin shared a chuckle with his two ladies. The next day came and he arrived in Bunderwald. The weather was humid and dry, hot enough for a weak person to pass out from the intense heat. He questioned why they put an enemy base out in the middle of a sun-baked desert. Regardless, it was nothing he couldn't handle. Adorned in his hooded reaper cloak and hollow mask, he approached the enemy base entrance. The guards heard rumors of a cloaked envoy with a mask who defeated KUROINU months ago. Seeing the mask being before them and how strong he was rumored to be, they immediately let him in out of fear and reported to Gladys. Seishin stood quietly still, like a statue, while all the knights and guards had their weapons drawn and pointed at him, from a safe distance. It wasn't long until Gladys approached the envoy. "I heard about you in rumors, that you defeated the mercenary group, KUROINU, and their leader. Having you here is quite an honor," Gladys said as she eyed the envoy, noticing that he was unarmed. She moved her hand from her sword and took a breath of relief. "You may speak your case. I only wish to talk with you, privately," the envoy calmly answered. "I have some things I want to inform and confirm." Gladys heard his calm, distorted voice behind the mask as well as seeing the seriousness in his eyes. She nodded before motioning her guards and knights to leave, leaving the two alone in the courtyard. "Speak," Gladys said. "The other day, one of your clansmen invaded a castle, seeking the swordsman you heard about," he said. "How did you know that?" Gladys wondered as she looked at the envoy as he chuckled. The envoy raised his bandaged claw and lightly gripped the bottom of his mask before lifting it up to reveal his true face. "It's you. The swordsman hired by the king." Gladys gasped at the red-haired male who grinned. "Seishin Samyu, right? Wait. You are the man who defeated KUROINU?" "Yes, it's me," Seishin answered. "You are full of surprises, Samyu." Gladys smirked. "Thank you, but this magician can't show you all of my tricks." Seishin chuckled. "I respect that." Gladys chuckled with him for a moment, until her smile faded and her serious look returned, before asking him her next question. "So, did you come here to challenge me? It is a rare opportunity to fight someone as famous as you." "Yes," Seishin answered, "but first, I would like to discuss what the winner would get." How about tomorrow afternoon?" Gladys suggested him. "As for how we settle it, since you defeated KUROINU, how about swordplay? And I can tell since our first encounter, you are curious on how well I fight. You are the commander of this army, so I can tell you have some tricks under your belt." Seishin replied. "But, I do agree with us fighting facing off, tomorrow at high noon. Where can we fight? Your camp or in Bowen? I want to have a good audience, so I want to fight you in Bowen." Gladys answered with ambition in her voice. "If you win, I'll surrender. But if I win, you will be decapitated by my hands." "Okay, then. Bowen it is." Seishin calmly nodded. "Now that the preparations are set, now the other question is, why are you here, besides the preparations of our duel?" Gladys' eyes glared strong at the young man, as she awaited his answer. Seishin glanced back with a calm but serious look on his face before he took a deep breath. "I wanted to make something certain, Gladys." Seishin answered, "I bet the reason that you haven't invaded Odo during the past 2 years, it's because you simply don't want to, If you wanted to expand your kingdom, you would have invaded Odo long ago. But deep down, you don't have the intention, am I right?" Gladys' glare hardened as Seishin guessed his speculation correct. Her fists tightened, causing the veins in her hands to pulse and throb as her anger rises. "I can take Odo, whenever I please, Samyu." Gladys rebuked the unfazed red-haired man. "I understand, but I bet the other reason is that there were too many independent rebel groups roaming freely." Seishin continued as he crossed his arms over his chest. "The division was leading to anarchy and you were trying your best to prevent it from spreading out. So, all in all, if the desperate forces were united, it would prevent foreign powers from invading. I bet you could nip a sudden violent reform in the bud as well." As it pains to admit, Gladys knows Seishin guessed it right. She did all she could to keep her anger under control, but deep down, it was becoming harder for her. Independent rebel forces roaming around, scrambling to find ways to control the other rebel forces, thus causing a power vacuum in the midst. Even with her role as commander, it's difficult to help contain the other rebel groups and work together with hers to maintain control. She's doing all she could to honor her father's legacy, but it's proven harder to maintain in her current position. "Gladys, I know you're trying to honor your father's legacy, but wouldn't it be best if you would accept an unconditional surrender? Seishin asked. Do you honestly think I would? What gives you the right to that idea? Gladys questioned his offer. Just recently, I spoke with the king and we made a compromise. If I capture you, the death penalty will be lifted. Seishin continued. Your troops can have the option to return to their families and loved ones, instead of being put into LBR, or join my cause, in case there's any betrayal, or KUROINU making their move. I thought you defeated all of KUROINU. Gladys said. Yes, but there is one who can be tricky to put down. Seishin replied as he remembered the man he's talking about. A scowl was formed on his face as he remembered the smirk on his scaly face. I had first met him back in Dragondala when it was under attack. He later joined KUROINU as their mage, scientist, and intel spy. His name is Kabuto Yakushi, and knowing him, he's out there somewhere. Planning something. Maybe for revenge. He might even send spies that work under him to gather intel. Are you certain about what you said, Seishin? Gladys wondered. I'm everything, but a liar, Gladys. I meant what I said. Gladys pondered over Seishin's response. Up to now, he shows that he has no ill intentions against her. He approached her unarmed, warned her of an incoming threat, and that he wants to fight her one-on-one in an honorable duel. Gladys' decision was clear. To commend your honesty and bravery to approach me, Seishin, I'll accept your words. This ends our chat. Gladys replied, which Seishin nodded. Just as he was about to leave, Gladys stopped him once more. Seishin, she spoke calmly, I'm looking forward to our duel. And don't worry, your secret as Salinas' hero will be safe with me. I greatly appreciate that, Gladys. Seishin said with a smile on his face, before he summoned his hollow mask in front of her. Until we meet again. Gladys watched with a smirk on her face as Seishin bowed to her before leaving the base camp. Along the way, he bumped into a familiar face. The face of one Wang Quan. TSK. People should watch where they're going, instead of bumping into others like that. Wang Quan muttered as he continued into the rebel base. Unaware of it all, Seishin chuckled under his mask before holding in his hand a badge with KUROINU's insignia on it. The same one Zerboin and Madouas had. Looks like he was a traitor all along. Hollow said as he watched Seishin write a message on a scroll. Yeah. I'm not surprised. Seishin replied. I better report the news to Felsen and the others. Meanwhile, in KUROINU's hidden base, a few guards were watching over the cage, keeping it protected from harm. The red panel cage hasn't been glowing since they retreated to the cave after Volt had died. All of the remaining men were expecting something good to happen, but so far, nothing. It wasn't long until Kabuto returned from his run. In his hands were a few needed potions and the remains of Volt's longsword. Kabuto, welcome back. Volt's right-hand man Chris said. So far, the cage is safe and sound so far and nothing has happened. Very good, Chris. Kabuto said as he pats him on his back. Right now, I gathered a few potions and herbs, along with the hilt and broken blade of Volt's longsword. Hopefully I'll be close, with what I currently have. Close to what I may ask? Chris asked him. It has been over 3 months since you kept that cage, and I'm curious to know what you have planned, sir. Chris, you've been Volt's right-hand man for a long time, haven't you? Kabuto rhetorically asked. I'll let you in on a little secret. What's that? He asked, which Kabuto chuckled as his glasses gleamed. Volt's currently on a journey through death. Kabuto said, which surprises Chris. A journey to find new power. I can't say when he'll reach his goal, but it'll happen soon. Chris remained puzzled at Kabuto's words, but hearing that Volt might return, gave him a bit of hope. He turned the cage as Kabuto began to chuckle a little. As Kabuto's chuckle grew into a dark laugh, the black mist within the red panels began to shape itself into a Cerberus, before revealing a dark red eye. Later that night, Isis was returning to her quarters from the dining hall. As she was on her way to her room, she stopped to see Motire being snuggled and flirted on by two other well-endowed women wearing outfits that made them look like belly dancers. One has long brown wavy hair that's parted in the middle and green eyes. She wore a lavender-pink CRP top with matching detached sleeves and high-heeled sandals. Isis knows her by her name, Aristella. The other woman who was flirting with Motire was Droit. Like Aristella, she was a well-endowed beauty with brown eyes and long wavy sea-green hair. The two continued to flirt with him by pressing their melons against his body. "Ah, you girls. Keep that up and I'm going to get all excited." Motire chuckled, until his eyes were locked with Isis's. As the blonde-haired knight glared at her cheating fiancé, she remembered what Seishin said to her that day. Flashback. "Isis, you're stronger than you think," Seishin said as Isis then looked up at him. "Isis. You're not weak," Roxanne said, getting her attention. "I was once weak myself, and like you, I was in an arranged marriage with Erboine. My love life was terrible, I will admit. Not a day goes by wishing I would be loved, until the day Seishin saved me. He filled my heart with love once again." "You did?" Isis turned back to Seishin. "Yeah, it was no big deal." Seishin brushed the back of his head, blushing a light pink. "I didn't like how Erboine was treating her, so I opened myself up to her, just like what I'm doing now. Like I said before, Isis. You are not weak. You're strong, brave, appealing." "Me, be appealing?" Isis stammered over her words after Seishin complimented her. She tried to think of something else to say but her blushing fit denied her of her thoughts. "All in all, Isis. You are a strong, independent woman," Seishin continued. "Don't let such petty insults from anyone else weigh you down. So be strong for me, okay?" Flashback ended. "What's the matter, wench? Afraid to stand up and tell me what's on your mind without breaking down like a baby?" Motire smirked as he continued to tease and bully the blonde knight. As he continued to ridicule her, her anger began to boil. Until... Pow! A strong punch was thrown by Isis, hitting Motire square in the nose, making him fall face first into the dirt. Droid and Aristella gasped and ran to help Motire back up, while the blue-haired male growled. "I had enough of you insulting me. Making fun of my family. Threatening me with taking the funds away. All of that ends here, Motire. I'm done. Done with you. Done with this arranged marriage," Isis boldly said. "Seishin is right about you. You really are a D-wad." Motire growled before charging at Isis, knocking her down with a strong punch to the side of her right eye, knocking her down, head first to the ground before drawing his sword. The blonde suddenly turned to see him raising his sword, attempting to attack her. Just as she closed her eyes, a loud metallic clang reverberated throughout the courtyard moments before Motire's sword could cut into her body, the resulting shockwave left a ring of dust around them. Wincing as she opened her eyes, the pain permeating her body momentarily abating, Isis found herself staring at the one person she never expected to see, the masked envoy. "Stay away from Isis." The masked man's voice echoed as he pushed him away with little effort. Isis was stunned to see the cloaked man standing by her as Motire glared at him for a few seconds. He screamed and charged at the cloaked man with his sword raised, preparing to drive his sword through the man's chest. The masked male took a deep breath before parrying Motire's sword with ease, knocking the knight's blade out of his hands before landing behind him with a loud clang. Motire quickly ran to pick the blade up, only to freeze when the cloaked man's blade was pointing at his throat. Seeing that he cannot win this fight, he retreated. "You may have some help, Isis. But like I said, you are nothing without me." Motire said before he, Droid and Aristella walked off. Isis watched as the cloaked envoy approached her before holding his bandaged hand, offering her help. The blonde knight gently took his hand before he helped her up. She gazed at the mask he wore and the red eyes within it. "Are you okay, Isis?" the cloaked man asked, which surprised the blonde knight as she heard the calmness within the echoed voice. "Why yeah. I'm fine. Thank you for helping me back there," Isis said with a smile. The cloaked male softly growled before he bowed back. As he was about to leave, Isis called him. "Wait. Who are you, and why did you help me?" "I'm just a friendly neighborhood guardian," the cloaked man said with a chuckle. "I couldn't sit back and watch Motire try to pull a fast one on you. By the way, that was one heck of a strong punch." "Thank you," Isis replied with a giggle herself. "Before you go, can you tell me your name?" "I won't tell you, at least not yet, but a riddle I want you to solve," the envoy said. "One day, I am a wandering light that broke the rumored darkness. A rumor from one land will soon become true. Though that darkness still lingers at large, that light, whose identity will be revealed, seeks to destroy that darkness. What am I? A wandering light?" Isis wondered as she pondered over the riddle the envoy left behind, but as she looked back up, the envoy was gone. The next day came and King Hegel I was in the bathroom getting dressed and ready to start his day, until he heard a thud in his quarters. Curious, he went to see what's going on, only to see a small package, wrapped in a smooth red velvet and tied with yellow rope. He opened the velvet wrap to reveal a crystal ball perched on a smooth black stand. Attached to it is a note that says, "Look closely and you'll see." Hegel doesn't see the crystal ball as threatening, so he looks at the crystal ball before showing him what's happening right now. At the same time, Seishin was in his room, sitting on his chair as he finished eating his lunch. Moments later, Roxanne, the war generals, Schlam, Zant and Felsen, along with Isis and Wang Quan all arrived. Seishin then told them the news and when the duel that he and Gladys will have. "Single combat?" Zant exclaimed. "Seishin, Gladys is not only great with swords, but she's also good with chess." "Well, I'm glad I didn't choose chess," Seishin said before chuckling sheepishly. "Sorry about that, but I'll admit, I'm not good with chess. Perhaps, you guys can teach after apprehending Gladys. Only one choice remains, if she loses, her forces will surrender to us." Wang Quan added. "Yeah, I know," Seishin calmly replied before a chuckle was made. "This is going to be pretty fun." "Seishin, this isn't a laughing matter. Gladys is a tough opponent," Schlam said. "I know, I am too," Seishin replied as he glanced at the generals with seriousness in his eyes. "And if Seishin loses, he is executed and we all surrender," Felsen said. "Seishin, you have to get serious about this fight." Wang Coin. "I don't suppose you orchestrated this infiltration." "It's Wang Quan." Wang Quan replied, "And I'm merely speaking under order from the king." "Everyone, I know you're worried about the fight and the outcome," Seishin said as he rose from his seat, "but believe me, I'm more than capable of handling Gladys in a sword fight." "Are you sure, Seishin?" Isis asked him with concern in her eyes. "I trust him, Isis," Roxanne said with a smile. "I have complete faith Seishin will win this fight." "Isis, Roxanne, everyone, don't worry, I'll be fine. In the meantime, let us rest for tomorrow afternoon," Seishin said. "Also, I'll make sure Wang Quan is punished as well." Those next words shocked everyone in the room and even the king, who was watching it from the crystal ball in his room. "Punished?" everyone gasped. "Exactly," Seishin answered. "You were lying about receiving orders from the king. Do you still believe the lie that I infiltrated?" Wang Quan said while standing proudly. "Surely you jest." "I do, and I have 2 pieces of proof. Seishin smirked before taking out the KUROINU medallion in his pocket. The other day, you bumped into a masked man with a Reaper cloak who had left the enemy base camp. When the 2 bumped, he pickpocketed something out of your person. The medallion of the infamous mercenary group, KUROINU. Humph, it could have been someone else, but it wasn't me. Wang Quan boasted, which made Seishin chuckle, ceasing his boastful attitude. Yeah, but I didn't tell you about who the masked man in the Reaper cloak was. Seishin said as he summoned his hollow mask, leaving everyone stunned. It was me. Now that Wang Quan was arrested and sent to the dungeons, Seishin revealed his true identity to the war generals, Isis, and to King Hegel, though he watched it through the crystal ball. Everyone was speechless at the young man's true identity. What? What did you say your name was? Felsen asked Seishin, who simply chuckled before snapping his fingers. His outfit glowed before he was enveloped in a small tornado for a few seconds, only to reveal his Soul Reaper outfit fused with the Reaper cloak, and his hollow mask was on to complete the look. My name. The cloaked man said before he removed his mask without deactivating his hollow powers. His true identity is revealed. My name is Seishin Samyu, the king of Salinas and the man who defeated KUROINU. The rumors. They were true. Schlam gasped before he, Zant and Felsen all knelt down before Seishin. King Seishin, it's a pleasure to finally meet you. Zant greeted him with a gentle smile. We never knew that you were the rumored cloaked man who stopped KUROINU. Just call me Seishin, and you don't have to bow before me. It's kinda weird seeing others bowing before me. Seishin said, as he brushed the back of his head. I am a wandering light that broke the rumored darkness. A rumor from one land will soon become true. Though that darkness still lingers at large, that light, whose identity will be revealed, seeks to destroy that darkness. Isis said as she approached him. That was you? That's right. Seishin answered as he returned to his normal outfit. Before I can explain, we all need to speak with the king. But first. Shamsiel, you can come out now. As Seishin called her out, the dark pink-haired succubus appeared beside the young man as she floated down. She smiled and waved to everyone before wrapping her arms around Seishin's right arm. Hi, everyone. Shamsiel greeted. You're the demon that killed the villagers. Felsen cried as he was about to reach for his sword, but Seishin held his hands out to stop him. Whoa. 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 Easy now, everyone. Seishin said. Shamsiel's my familiar, and as long as she's with me, she won't harm anyone else. You have my word. Well. You have been honest to this point. Schlam replied. Felsen and Zant took a moment to ponder before they, too, agreed with Schlam. Okay, Seishin. We trust you. Thank you. Now, let us go and speak with the king. Seishin said before they all had left to see the king. Felsen then stopped him to ask him another question. Tell me, Seishin. What are you exactly? Felsen asked him, which made Seishin calmly smile. I'm many things, Seishin replied with a chuckle. I'm a king, a war general now, a guardian and a friend, but behind all of it, I'm just a soul reaper lending a helping hand. A soul reaper? Like a grim reaper? Isis asked him. I'll explain everything, even how I am who I am. Seishin replied as he led the others to the king's throne. When he got there, he explained everything to everyone. How he got to Salinas, his run-ins with KUROINU and the people he saved. And apparently some of the nicknames he got from some people, like HRM King. He also told him what a soul reaper is. Everyone was left stunned after hearing what was said. King Hegel was the first to speak. Seishin, first off, let me thank you for all that you have done. Hegel said as he looked at him with a calm but stern look on his face. You fought through all of KUROINU to save Princess Celestine and the others. How are they anyway? Celestine and her apprentice, Aliyah, Olga, Kachu and the others are doing quite well. Seishin replied. The districts in Eostia and the kingdom of Dragondala are rebuilt and back to normal. Maybe one day, you'll meet up with them. Yes, of course. Hegel answered, until a new question came to mind. You also said that you're part of an organization called the Allied Knights Federation, correct? Yes, sir. Seishin replied. I know Volt is currently dead, and I know KUROINU's currently defeated, but I know Kabuto is still hiding, planning their revenge. I do want as much help with defeating them completely, will you lend me your aid? King Hegel pondered over what Seishin said for a brief moment. He turned around to see the others ponder over his suggestion. There might be others that are just like KUROINU, those that rule lands with an iron fist, corrupting the people, enslaving innocents, men, women. I don't want to see such a fate happen. Seishin added. I understand, young king, which is why I'll gladly lend you my support. Hegel replied, which lit a smile on Seishin's face. That goes for us, as well. Schlam said as he, Zant, and Felsen approached the young man. Felsen welcomed Seishin's offer with a strong handshake. Count me in, Seishin. Isis added herself. I would love to join your cause. Thank you, Isis. Seishin kindly replied. Tell me, is your mother still home? Why yes, but why? Isis wondered, which made the young man smile. It's a surprise, Isis. And I want you to be surprised when it happens. Seishin said, which made the blonde knight's heart skip a beat. But how will you do it, exactly? Isis asked. Hee. You'll see. Seishin answered as he and Isis were leaving the castle. Until the king called him. Seishin, I'll have one of my guards bring dinner up to you when you return. King Hegel offered. That would be great. Thanks, your majesty. Seishin said as he and Isis left the throne room. Elsewhere, Wang Quan, who was arrested for espionage and for siding with KUROINU, was sent to the dungeon. During the past few hours he sat down, alone, anger filled his very soul. Anger from Seishin, exposing Wang for his connections to the mercenary group. Not wanting to let the red-headed male roam free while he's held captive before his punishment, he pulled out a green vial, seconds before spotting a knight doing a patrol of the dungeons. Hey! Wang Quan muttered to the guard who stopped by the cell when he heard the man's voice. Have him swallow this. The guard didn't answer, but he saw the small green vial in Wang's hand. He then took the vial and walked off to the kitchen. Little did the traitorous Wang know, Shamsiel saw what happened. She followed the knight into the kitchen where she saw him leave the vial on the countertop before leaving the kitchen. Shamsiel giggled as floated down beside the counter and picked it up. I don't want him to drink some nasty poison. Instead, I'll give him this PHRDS and F him till he drops. Shamsiel said as she left the kitchen with the poison in her hand. Moments later, Seishin and Isis arrive at her home, though it's owned by Motair. It was a two-story mansion with a blue rooftop, symmetrically designed with the back roof taller than the one in front. 7 long windows on each side, with a terrace on the second floor. 7 trees were planted on each side in front of the mansion with sky blue railings that lead to 2 sets of stairs, one on each side. In front of the stairs was an empty carriage. I'm guessing this is your first time seeing a mansion this vast before, huh? Isis asked him. Something like that. Seishin replied with a happy chuckle. Did you have mansions like this back in your world? She wondered. My parents have, I do have a house that's almost as vast. Seishin replied as he and Isis walked up the stairs. Isis smiled at the young man looking around the place before they stood before the front door. The blonde knight knocked on the door before it was answered by 2 people standing in front of 4 other maids. The butler was a tall, elder man with sleek silver hair, whom Seishin reminds him of Alfred from the Batman shows and movies he watched. The other was an appealing maid, in her mid-30s. She has blonde wavy hair, though the rest is tucked under her bonnet. She wore a Victorian maid's outfit. She's incredibly well endowed, large assets, curvy peach, and an hourglass figure that rivals Celestine. The two saw Isis and smiled warmly before greeting her with a bow. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 15. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Takamagara 2012 on fanfiction.net. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.